Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our debut author panel. I'm Van, the author of Girl Giant and the Monkey King, and I'm going to be moderating our panel today. And just to let you all know, it's pre-recorded, but we'll be here in the comments if you want to ask our authors any questions. So we'll be here to answer them. And before we get started, I'm going to give our authors an opportunity to introduce themselves. So we're just going to go like in order of the screen. So take it away, June.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is June Xiao Tan. I'm the author of Jade Fire Gold. It's a YA epic fantasy that's inspired by Chinese mythology. And I guess it follows two protagonists. One is a peasant girl who is cursed with dark magic, and she has to team up rather reluctantly with a prince who has been exiled. And what he wants to do is to seek revenge. And she's very useful to him. And, like things happen. And yeah.
Sounds really good.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Diana Ma, and I'm excited to be here. I'm the author of Heiress Apparently, which is the first in a young adult epic romance Daughters of the Dynasty series. And it's a contemporary novel, and it follows Gemma Huang, who is a teen actress looking for her big break. And she gets it. She gets a role that is shooting in Beijing, which is actually a big problem because her parents' one big do not break at all costs rule is don't step foot in Beijing. And they won't tell her why. So, of course, she lies to them and she goes. And once she gets there, all kinds of things happening. There's mistaken identity. And she starts to realize, oh, maybe my parents had a good reason for keeping this secret from me and for telling me never to step foot in Beijing. So what ensues is a summer of romance and secrets and family.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Eric. I am the author of Things We Lost to the Water. It's about a family who flees Vietnam after the Vietnam War, and they end up in New Orleans. And the novel kind of chronicles their 30 years there, and how they're adjusting to the new country.
Hi, I'm Alice Chao. I don't have a hard copy yet, but I'm the author of, can you see it? Soul Affinity, which is an urban fantasy set in London with basically a law firm that fronts for reapers. And it's a story of reincarnation trope. It's a romance, second chance at first love. And that's coming out later this year. Yeah, this summer.
And I'm Kylie Lee Baker. I'm the author of The Keeper of Night, which is a young adult dark fantasy about a half British Reaper, half Japanese Shinigami in the 1890s who gets chased out of her home in London and runs away with her brother to Japan, where she tries to work for the goddess of death there, but is asked to prove herself by killing 3 of Japan's most dangerous demons.
Wow. Yeah,
I got
those
to
all
show
sound.
my book. I am
Yes.
going to just do this really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that cover so much.
It's so beautiful. Actually, all of your covers are really beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So what has the experience been like debuting or about to debut during this pandemic? And anyone just jump in. We don't have to go like in order or anything.
I think it's hard because there's not a lot to compare it to since it's our first time doing this. I mean, I sold my book right before everything closed down, like maybe 2 weeks before everything in the US shut down. So at the time I was really worried about the publishing industry, like, oh my gosh, are they going to cancel my contract or something? But yet everyone's still buying books. So that's good. As a debut, I don't think I would have been doing a ton of in-person things anyway. But I do like that because of the pandemic, which I mean, it's obviously horrible, but I mean, one positive thing would be so many things going virtual. Like this wouldn't be possible if we weren't doing so many virtual things now, because we're all in different parts of the world. So that's one good thing about it.
Yeah. Well, similarly, I don't really have a comparison except like friends who have already debuted in the olden times, pre-pandemic. And I guess like it's the same stress that you get, maybe an added layer of like, my copy's gonna be printed in time, am I gonna have arcs, things like that, and what kind of events will I get to go? But I think it's really cool that we get to connect with like people from everywhere, because you're not really like, because not everybody can fly, to a book event or pay to go to a book event, but having a lot of like virtual panels or just like doing IG lives, I think like it's really helpful for readers outside of the US or outside of the major cities, because they get to see us and interact with, authors. So it's, there's good things coming out from this, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with everyone else. I don't really have anything to compare this to because, again, it's like our first books.
Mhm.
But I think like the virtual events have like really been helpful. Like I've had like events in California, in Seattle, in like New York, and like it would have taken like a lot of travel time to do that, a lot of energy. But like with everything going virtual, it's like much easier, at least for me, and like less stressful without the travel. And just being online a lot because of the release has really helped me connect with a lot of readers, which is pretty cool and something that I didn't really expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with what everyone else said, but also add that it's been a very strange experience bringing everything that used to be outside of my home into this very small constrained space.
Yeah.
So when everything initially shut down, I have 2 school-age children, so they came home. So they were home with me. And my college, North Seattle College, where I teach at, also shut down. So my students came home with me, and I was teaching them through Zoom and through our online platform, which thankfully I had done before. And my writing came home. I had been doing my writing actually at my office at work, where I would just close the door, lock it, and then dim the lights so no one would know I was in there, and write. So now my writing space it's a little space right between my 2 kids' bedrooms, and also adjacent to the kitchen, the dining room, and then the kitchen, living room. It's like open. So I'm writing with, please, let me finish this scene. It's really important. I'm going to lose it. I'll get you apple juice later. I promise. All the apple juice you want. Just let me finish the scene. So it's been that like constant negotiation. And now the author events, which I had always anticipated, I get to go out in the world, away from the family I love. And the last panel I did, my mother came over and she said, "Oh, I'll keep an eye on the kids." And because she's vaccinated and she can finally come over and be here with the kids. So I was like, great. So I got into the panel and I could hear screaming and yelling, and everyone who watches the panel could hear my kids screaming. And the question was, so I had muted myself, and the question was, how do you see your role as, and there was a list of things, and I missed the question. So I came on and I was like, I don't know, but I'm basically going to talk about my role as a parent right now, because of the screaming in the background. So I guess what I'm saying is that I've been so grateful to connect with people. This is the only time I get to meet with people, is through these virtual events. And it has been so lovely to do that. So, so I'm very grateful for that.
Wow. So I have a slightly different experience. I'm a Kickstarter book. So I had plans to go to Canada because a lot of the Kickstarter supporters are based in Canada. And I was going to do a little book launch there in the summer, and not doing that. So that's a bit of a bummer, but doing these kind of things is just like being on Zoom and meeting other people is great. I mean, I'm in England, so we've been in lockdown for a long time and we still can't really travel. Although it's supposed to lift, but Diana, I totally hear you. This morning, I was just like trying to finish something, and my daughter, who I love and is adorable, but literally like I think it was every minute, mommy, yes. Oh, mommy, I had to tell you about this, blah. And I'm like, wonderful, darling. And then quiet, Mommy! I'm like, you're going to tell me about that same thing, aren't you? I'm like, please leave me alone. Yeah, I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, parenting and writing at the same time. I have so much respect for people who do that. So
just you wait when your little one can talk to you.
yeah, I know. I'm like kind of grateful that I can just like plop him in the corner. Okay, I know some of you guys have already launched your books, but some are about to come out. So if you could do like one huge event or something that you've just always dreamed of, like the perfect launch, what would that be?
Okay, I'll just go first. So I didn't really like have any ideas. Like once the pandemic started, I was like, okay, it'll just be like no launch. But during some Twitter chat, like someone asked that question too. And, you know, in the spur of moment, I thought, wow, it would be really cool if it was, because my book is in sort of an wuxia xianxia book. So it's martial arts and magic. And I'm like, it would be really cool if we could do it at a theme park that is themed, you know, like wuxia themed. So you have like, you know, the palace or like the sprawling like multi-story tea houses and stuff like that. And you get to cosplay
my
and wear
gosh.
the robes. And then you get to do wire fu, you know, like, you know, you're hooked out in a wire and you do like,
I was about to ask about that, like the floating thing.
So like basically like a movie set, you know, and everybody gets to like do it for fun. And it'll never happen. That's why it's high in the sky.
Why does that not exist?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I know like in some locations in China where they do shooting like that, sometimes like a really popular series like the Untamed, for example, they open it up. I don't think you can like, necessarily like do stunts or anything, but you get to see the sets. So I mean, I don't think we can find it in, you know, like Europe or America, obviously.
Yeah. That sounds really, really fun though.
Here I was like, oh, just in, you know, one of the, like Daunt Books, which is a really old bookshop in London. I'm like, oh, that sounds really boring now.
No, I think it'll be actually pie in the sky to have a launch in a bookshop now.
Yeah, it really would.
Now. Yeah, sure.
Just because there's so much food in my novel, I keep thinking about the food that I would want at this book launch, because it would have to be a place where people are fed. So I'm thinking definitely the egg tarts. Those egg tarts that you get at dim sum, they're so good. And songyobing, the green onion pancakes, and noodles, and just like all this food. So I would want a book launch with an all-you-can-eat buffet that features all the food in my book, plus some. And then I hadn't gotten past that. That's where I'm stuck.
No, I think like every book launch should have food. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've been thinking for a long time that I just want a book cake, which is not that crazy of a dream, because I know a lot of people do it, but that only, I mean, I think that has more to do with me just wanting cake at all times than like a huge book dream, but that only works if it's an actual in-person event, because that is way too much cake for just me. I mean, I could eat it, but like I shouldn't, so...
Kylie, this is the very first time I've been hearing about a book cake, and I'm just wondering, why have I never heard of that before?
Yeah.
Who had the cake with the wrong cover?
Yes, I saw that.
Jessie. Wait, yeah, Jessie Sukanto. Yeah.
It was so cute. She got it right. Like she got the right one in the end, right?
Yeah. It was like this Twitter. She like posted on Twitter how she ordered a book cake, but then she sent a sample, but she told them that she was going to send her cover later, and then she forgot to. So then the person ended up making the cake of like a totally different book.
Yeah.
2 cakes.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Well, I celebrate my book launch with a cake. My husband made me the cake like with a picture of my book, which was pretty cool. So that was like part of like my book release dream. But like since my book takes place like in New Orleans and has like the Vietnamese culture in there as well, I in my head like I kind of pictured like a big celebration with food from like New Orleans plus like Vietnamese food as well, just to merge those two cultures that are so like prevalent in my book.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I went to like New Orleans as a kid, and I remember having bayonets there, and that was like the last time I had it, and I still think about it, like from like 12 years ago. Who's next, Diana?
Oh, yeah. So I had talked about food, and I was actually fortunate enough to get the book deal ahead of time, and I had the forethought, not of course that I knew what was going to happen, to have a book deal party. So I'm really glad I did.
Wow.
So yeah, it wasn't really anything big, just a bunch of people came and we celebrated and people said things and it was really sweet. We just met at a bar, which actually sounds amazing now when I say a big bunch of people met at a bar. But I do remember that I knew what I wanted to wear. There's one scene where Gemma puts on a suit and it's just like transformative and it helps her visualize her role in the movie that she's trying to take back. She's trying to counter a lot of tropes about Asian American actresses and what roles they can play. So she puts on a suit and that advances her romance as well. And so I knew I wanted to wear a suit to my my book deal party, which now has become in my head my book launch party. And I just remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool if at a book launch there was it was like a fashion show, like people could put on the clothes that they wouldn't normally wear necessarily, but that they've always wanted to. And then it could just be whatever people wanted to wear, and it would be a party with food and fashion and fun things.
Yeah, that does sound really fun.
That sounds amazing. Actually, I'm thinking about your book. I'm like, a book launch where everybody flies to Beijing, stays in like one of the Beijing Siheyuan, like the courtyard hotels, with all the food, like all the food. I think that would be, I'm like, I want to go to that one.
Okay, let's do that.
I'm like, okay, I want to upgrade mine from the bookshop because it's set in a law firm. I think it'd be fun to have to like hire out one of the city law firms, like in the city of London, with a roof, like a rooftop terrace and a bar, and that would be fun. That would be quite nice, and like have cosplay because my book has a lot of the immortals in there are basically all sorts of creatures. There's like Ra, a god, like a immortal with a wolf's head, a guy with wings, an actual reaper looking guy with an oar and the hood. So it'd be fun to have people like that wandering around while drinking champagne and eating.
Oh yeah, that would be fun, like in costume or something. I always wanted to do like a rooftop pool party because I like rooftops and I like pools, so it would look so cute. Okay, let's stop, or like not stop, but let's play our game that we have prepared, which is a scavenger hunt. So I'm gonna ask you guys to find the first item, which is something you got in a pre-order campaign.
Can we show it?
Yes. Okay. Ooh. Alice, what was it? What was it?
The ones we're meant to find. It's not out in the UK yet. I have to wait.
Oh yeah.
That's the one I have too that I'm going to show.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to like stack up the character cards.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
Are you doing a collection? How do you?
So beautiful.
Yeah. Do you guys have like a way to display these? Because like I want to like display my bookmarks and stuff, but it's just like I don't know how other than like sticking them to a cork board or something.
One of those two-way frames, the ones that they're sort of glass on both sides, and you can flip them if you need to. Because I feel like gluing them or putting them on, like if you put them on a cork board, you have to put a pin in them, and it ruins them.
Yeah. I guess you could like maybe stand, because like if it's this, it's like pretty sturdy. You could like stand it and lean it against something. But I'm a terrible person. I get all these and I keep them in the envelopes and I put it in my drawer. And now and then I look at them and go, oh, so pretty, and then I put that back in the drawer. Yeah.
What do you have, Diana?
I didn't actually get anything for a pre-order campaign. So what I thought I would share is, so book 2 in the Daughters of Dynasty series is coming out, and it's coming out next March, I think. So there will be a pre-order campaign for that at some point. And as a teaser, on the back jacket of Heiress Apparently, they put this picture, which is Gemma's mother. They didn't say that, but they just put that there, and you could tell she's kind of in 80s gear. So it's going to take place, for those of you who know your Chinese history, you'll figure it out, in Beijing 1989.
Oh,
so yeah. Wow. So that is a teaser for the book 2. It's going to go back in time. It's a historical, rather than a contemporary.
Can I ask a question or no?
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, is she going to be at Tiananmen?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, that's intense.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was there, so.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah. She was in a hotel overlooking the whole thing.
Wow. I would love to talk to you at some point later.
Yeah, and she would love. I'm like, I'm volunteering you, but I know she would love.
Oh, wonderful! Oh, I would so much love that.
Yeah, she's amazing. Sorry.
No. Yeah, Kylie, what did you have?
I would like to take this opportunity to shill for you, Van, and Girl Giant and the Monkey King. I haven't done that many pre-order campaigns, but this was the closest one I had to me. These lovely stickers here. I don't know where my camera is. These lovely stickers here, which I don't know how to use technology.
Yeah, it's okay.
And there was a bookmark here. There's a what is this?
Book plates?
Yeah. There's a bookmark here too, but it is in a different book somewhere that I cannot locate.
It's okay.
Yeah, Girl Giant and the Monkey King.
Thank you. All right, Eric, did you have something?
Not for my own book. I mean, like I had book plates, but those are all gone now. I don't have any of those. And for the books I pre-order, they usually just come signed, and they're like have like piles of books right here, and I don't want to go through them. But
yeah. I feel like pre-order campaigns are much more popular like in YA or in like kid books, like not so much in adult books. Yeah. Okay, next item is your favorite notebook, pen, or writing tool. I'm like a nerd for writing tools. I'm always like very interested in other writers, like things. Ooh,
what is that?
It's an Alpha Smart. I use it for drafting because it's like such old technology. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no connection. You can't see beyond like 3 lines. So if you screw up, because I get really anxious when I write. If I screw up something, I sit there for 5 minutes and try to find the correct word. And it's very, very inefficient. So with this, once it moves up, I can't see it. If I can't see it, I don't know that I screwed up. So yeah.
Brilliant.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, quite a few people I know use this. They have like the more high-tech one, but that one's $500. This is like $35 from eBay.
Nice.
So,
Wow.
get it.
How do you get it onto the computer? Is it like a memory stick?
There's a wire, I think it's a USB probably, and you open the Word docs, you put your cursor at the right place, and then it just like you press send and so on. Yeah.
Oh wow!
It's like low tech in a way that you don't really have to learn anything, and I like that.
Yeah. I remember using that when I was in like first grade or something.
Yeah.
I think Kylie, you technically won this round. Well, is it a dinosaur pen?
It's a dinosaur pen. It's really heavy. One of my coworkers in Korea gave it to me because I was showing her this clip on a variety show. They were talking about Jurassic Park, and I was like, I don't get why everyone's laughing. Why are they laughing? And she's like, they're making a joke about a swear in Korean. That's why you don't get it. And then she gave me this pen. She's like, you remember what we talked about? So it's my dinosaur pen.
It's really cute. Does it write well, or is it just like decorative?
Reasonably well. Yeah. But pretty heavy. So.
Yeah.
I have a pen. It's just like, and it's actually, I need to figure out how to wash it because it's got, I don't know if you can see, it's got like, I can't see I don't know where my camera is either. Yeah. That and my Hobonichi.
Ooh. I love clear fountain pens because I have this thing where like I have to constantly be checking how much ink is left because I get anxious about like, filling up the cartridge. And yeah, when I write with a clear one, I'm like, okay, no excuse. You can't stop. You can see how much ink is left.
And you have such pretty writing videos on Instagram with all your fancy pens and ink and stuff.
Thank you. It's I don't know if it's like a good addiction.
There are worse things to be addicted to.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm addicted to journals. I have a ton of journals that I hardly ever use, but this one I love, Wonder Woman. And I'm really picky about my journals. People keep giving me journals, and I don't like the ones that are that you can't open all the way. I just like it like this, so it has to be spiral bound. So I love it.
Yeah, I love a flat journal, and I can't stand it when it's like, if it's like even slightly not flat, I'm like, ew, like I don't want to use it.
I know, it's like constantly closing on you as you're trying to write. And yeah. I like this one because you can flip it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Eric?
Journals too. Mine is not like a spiral, but lays flat, and it's my Hello Kitty journal.
Cute.
Love that.
I love Hello Kitty, and it's just where I take my notes for hopefully my next book. So we'll see how that goes.
That's so cute. When I was a kid, I had like this book idea to write Hello Kitty as like a demon because like so many people like worship her, and like turned her like spirit into like an evil spirit. I never pursued this idea, but I always like have thought about it.
It sounds like a fun like middle grade or like yeah. I've always wondered why Hello Kitty doesn't have a mouth.
Right?
Like she has no mouth. It's like
No.
Do any of the other Sanrio characters have mouths though?
Huh.
I don't know. And My Melody doesn't have mouth either. What else is from Sanrio?
Miffy, but
Anyway, moving on. The last item is an unusual bookmark. If you don't have an unusual one, it could be like your favorite bookmark. Ooh, Alice. It's a feather.
Yeah, it was a gift from one of my writing friends. She's like, love you.
It's so pretty.
Our little group all got one. It's like really, it's so pretty.
All right, who's next?
So I was on a panel at work recently where we were doing a discussion of a chapter in Kathy Kong's Minor Feelings, and like the nerd I am, I totally prepared. Those are all
Oh my gosh.
notes with little quotes that I wanted to come back to. And so
That is
I don't
amazing.
use bookmarks so much as I use tiny little, oops, that one fell off.
Oh no.
Sticky notes that apparently don't stick very well. And they have like little things like this one says, ugly feelings. So just remind me of that. And I didn't during this discussion, I didn't open it once because I had done all this. So I remember exactly what I wanted to say.
That's awesome.
It's a good book.
It's such a good book.
I don't really use bookmarks. I'm the terrible person who dog ears my book and also reads it while I'm eating. So, but if I do use it, I just tend to use like postcards.
Yeah.
If I have postcards,
I will admit I dog ear my books too. I very like this is one bookmark and it's probably my only one. So the rest of the books just get dog eared.
Yeah.
I don't know how unusual this is, but I wanted to show this to June because I think she would appreciate it.
Sorry. I was like, oh, can you edit that up? Oh my god. Okay. Did you get it yourself or did someone give it to you?
One of my students in Korea, when I was there, just came up to me and handed this to me one day. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And I just walked
Wait,
away.
what is it?
No words exchanged. Oh, sorry. This is a BTS bookmark.
Yeah, it's a BTS bookmark. And that is Kim Tae-young, one of the members.
Oh, okay.
And for me to follow up on my journal, I have a Hello Kitty bookmark.
That is so cute.
It's really cute.
Wait, she does have a mouth. Isn't that X thing?
Is it? Oh, is
right?
it her nose?
It's her nose,
No,
and then the
no, it's her nose.
No.
If
That's
you
her
go on
nose.
Wikipedia, there's an entire entry about why she doesn't have a mouth, and there are like theories about what
Oh my
it's
God.
trying to say.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, there's something wrong with me because I know this, but yeah, if you're interested, like, you know, since I was a kid, I've always wondered why doesn't she have a mouth? But it's supposed to. I think one theory was about, you know, Hello Kitty was supposed to be a little girl, and, you know, it's kind of like the allegory of like her not having a voice, which
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really deep. Like, why? It's just a cute cat. But anyway, like, that's one theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello
That's kind of
Kitty
sad.
trivia. Yeah.
Okay, that was really fun. We're gonna go back to our questions now.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. What mythological stories or folktales inspired or influenced your books?
For
Like,
me,
this,
just all death mythology, like global death mythology. So I've got like angels and grim reapers. I've got Greek, I think Ra, Isis. I've got a fat pig, or no, yeah, I have a pig. I also have a frog. So somewhere maybe there's a there's a mythology about frogs.
Cool. Jade Fire Gold is inspired by Chinese mythology. There's actually a myth inside, but I made it up myself. But there are lots of references in that myth and throughout the book to things like Chang'e and Hou-Yi, basically the moon goddess,
Mhm.
and you know how she became the moon goddess. So there are references to that. There's a reference to Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. There is stuff about the peaches of immortality. So, you know, it's just like this kind of myths that I heard about when I was, read about and heard about and watched a lot of movies about as a kid. And I was just like throwing them in as Easter eggs.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's so fun. Do you guys like when you're writing about mythology? Sorry, this is like branching off of our question. Do you ever fear, so because like my book is heavily based on mythology, and like one of my greatest fears is like I'm gonna change so much and make so many people angry. Like, do you guys also have that fear?
I do worry about that. I kind of I try before I use any characters. My book has a lot of Japanese mythology in it. It's based very strongly in Shinto mythology. I would check that those characters had also been used in anime before, because Japanese people make a lot of anime about their mythology. So I'm like, okay, if they can like make these complex characters with flaws and everything, I don't think anyone will be too offended by it. I'm not the first person who's been doing something like that.
Yeah, I think I wasn't worried when I was writing it, and then I got worried because I saw discourse, and then now I'm less worried simply because if you look at kind of like what Kylie's saying, if you look at like people, if you look like people in Japan, people in China, people in Korea, and so on, basically in Asia, who are writing all these stories, they're kind of like mishmashing all their, you know, cultural traditions and the mythology and the legends and so on. I mean, they're like probably 50,000 reimaginings of Mulan, you know, the Ballad of Mulan. So I feel like if they can do it, I don't see why diaspora can have the same creative license as long as we're respectful and with research and we're not purposefully or even unintentionally doing something offensive with the mythological character or the theme, which I think like, you know, we are really very careful when we write when it comes to such things because it means so much to us. So personally, right now, I'm not that worried. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this question because I love hearing what everyone else is saying. And I actually do write a lot of Chinese mythology into my stories. Not Heiress Apparently. This was actually a branching out for me into contemporary. But I'm working on a project right now, which I can't really talk about. But it is based on Chinese mythology, and I find that so freeing because there are so many versions, as June was saying, and with something like a historical book, which is going to be book 2 in Daughters of the Dynasty, I'm actually really conscious of, I hope I don't get this wrong. This is a historical thing that happened, and people who are there are still alive, and so I'm constantly thinking about that. But growing up, listening to my father in particular tell me stories about Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, he would always mix it up. I mean, Tarzan was there a lot, and and we all played parts in this. I think my mom was always the pig demon, and she was always like, "Why do you always make me the pig demon?" So we give parts to everyone, and I think I was Jane at some point. I actually can't remember why Tarzan was in there, but then there was these things where he would say to open up the mountain, it was peanut butter was the secret code word to open up the mountain. And I was just like, so I have a very confused understanding of that mythology. It's already
yeah, and I think like mythology by nature is something that changes, with each generation. Like it used to be like an oral like passing down, and now we have other tools and technology. So yeah, like I kind of like walk that balance of like, oh, I'm gonna change everything and people are gonna be so angry, but then also it's like, oh, but I can, like, I'm part of the changing mythology and the culture anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I'm currently working on another novel which is set in Shanghai 1934, 35. And it's basically Chinese Hades. So I've got, the Wang, the D, I can't remember what they call them, Guang. I can't remember the Chinese name now. But
is it the Jiangxi?
No,
I
have Jiangxi, the vampires, the Chinese hopping vampires. It's basically about a mixed heritage protagonist. She's half fox spirit and half vampire, as in like European vampire, and kind of who she is and how she sort of has to find. It's like a coming of adulthood story about how she kind of has to find her own place and figure out how she fits because she doesn't quite. But it's fun, incorporating that and relating it back to Chinese mythology, with the bullhead and the Niu. There's like a bullhead and a yeah, right. The two guardians of the underworld. So yeah, it's been quite fun, and all the various demons and deities that exist in the Chinese pantheon. So that's been really
yeah. What about you, Eric? I know a lot of us are writing fantasy, so like we can play around with mythology, but like did you like have a folktale or something that inspired your writing?
Not really, but someone pointed out in a review that it reminded them a bit of the folktale of the lady from Nam Sung, which is this folktale in Vietnamese culture about this woman her husband goes to war, so she has to take care of her sons, her children as both the mother and the father. So I think I probably unconsciously put that in there, just because my novel is about a single mother taking care of her two children while the father is away, or in this case, kind of lost.
That's awesome. What themes were the toughest to write about for you guys?
I think for me, or you can go.
Oh no, go ahead.
For me, I think the toughest theme is just like war, because my book is more like a post-war kind of novel. But war has to be part of it. So like I felt like I'd never been at war before. I was born here in the U.S., so I didn't have a grasp of what war really was like. So that was difficult on an intellectual level to kind of understand. And it really took a lot of research to understand what war is like for people.
Yeah. And I'm Vietnamese too, and my parents went through the Vietnam War, and they don't talk about it. Like, even if you ask them directly, they just sort of brush it aside. So yeah, I can imagine how hard like the research for that would have been as well.
Yeah, same with my parents.
I think for mine, it's like a urban fantasy romance, so it was really fun to write. But one of my projects that I'm finding really hard, and I've had to step back, especially because of pandemic. I had been working on it when pandemic hit, and I just couldn't. Just really personal. It's like a family death, and like it's based a little bit on my family, that's just like when it hits too close to home, like I find that really hard, because you have to really, there are Chinese stereotypes in, you know, like the Confucian patriarchy and silence, and you know, it's not like you're like, hey, it's Friday, we're having a family meeting, let's all, you know, share our feelings. Like, it doesn't, that's not what my family was ever like. So trying to do that justice without making it this negative stereotype, right? I think that's really hard, you know, trying to show the humanity in a way, in a, when you know your when you know your eventual audience is going to have certain ideas and expectations about what that means, right? The whole, I don't know if, when you were growing up, whether there was like very little, you know, hugging, a lot of physical contact, a lot of like, wow, you're so beautiful, like kind of thing. It's just, it's not, it wasn't like the way that my family did that. But I knew when they were showing me love, like I knew what that code was and I recognized it. Whereas, you know, if you look at a Western audience who doesn't have the same background as me, I think that's hard. And trying to show that and get that across is, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
I don't think there were any particular themes in Jade Fire Gold that were hard to write, because I think I was like putting them in subconsciously. They were like, and I guess the earlier draft went a little deeper, but because of like word count constraints, you know, it can't be a 200,000 word book. A lot of the heavier stuff got taken out, and so basically there were themes of like colonization, colorism, and war, basically. And some parts of it was still inside, basically the erasure of history and voices, because I'm from Singapore, and we've been colonized twice, probably more. And it's a really layered and nuanced take in it, because a lot of Chinese from the southern China like migrated, you know, in the 1700s and 1800s to Singapore and kind of like moved the indigenous population to the side a little, and then the British came and then everybody got moved to the side, and then the Japanese came in, and so, you know, basically like all these feelings, even though like, you know, it's set in a fantasy world and all that, I think like some of these feelings that you don't think about always show up in what you write, because it's somewhere swirling in your head that you don't think of. And another overarching theme would be family. And I don't want to generalize, but I'm assuming because we're all Asian, we kind of understand the whole filial piety thing, you know, the Asian guilt that you feel towards your parents, wanting to pursue what you want, then, you know, not wanting to pursue what they want, but then you feel obliged because it's your family, you know, it's your parents, and so on. And I think like all these kind of like went into the fantasy setting, even though we're talking about royalty and princes and, you know, stuff like that. But a lot of like the themes about standing up and trying to find like your own person while being respectful of like whoever came before you, and so that like, yeah. So I think like I wasn't thinking, so it wasn't difficult. But when I read it in detail and was revising, I was like, oh, this is slightly uncomfortable. Did I write this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how like themes always emerge after like you are done with your draft or whatever, and then you kind of realize that like, oh, I'm so traumatized, and it's like showing up in all of my books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really identify with what people are saying. It's Alice, what you were talking about that love, and then June, what you were talking about that filial piece reminded me of, because my book is a rom-com, and it also references a lot of rom-coms and Asian rom-coms specifically. And I remember watching Always Be My Maybe with my husband, who is white, and there's this, I mean, I love that movie so much. So there's a scene, but there's a scene at the end where the main character, I can't remember her name, played by Ali Wong, has a complicated relationship with their parents, and at the end they come and they want to show her love, and they show her the receipt demonstrating that they paid full price, and I start bawling.
Yeah, you know it's love when they pay full price.
My husband's like, I don't get it. And I'm like sniffling and I'm like, that's love. There's this. So going into writing Heiress Apparently, I was aware there is going to be this white audience that doesn't get it. How much am I writing for them? How much am I writing for an Asian audience who are going to get things? And I also have to be aware of there are certain stereotypes and tropes that exist. And so there's a way I need to be authentic to my experience and also counter those tropes. Like the idea that that China and many Asian countries, I think, have a similar idea attached to it, is traditional, which is code for backwards and not progressive and repressive around gender and sexuality. So what I wanted to challenge, because I mean, on one hand, there is the Chinese government, which has these certain policies and stances. On the other hand, there is the Chinese people, and those are different things, and the culture is different too. So I was trying to walk that line of showing some problematic government policy, but also that there's a rich culture of very diverse sexuality and ideas about gender. And that was an extremely difficult thing to convey. I don't know if I did it, but that's what I was attempting.
Yeah.
Have you seen the IG accounts for street fashion from China?
Yeah.
It is, I'm just like, it's amazing. I just adore, like, the people just look beautiful. I mean, like, they're wearing all sorts of getup, and it's like, yeah, just look for it on Instagram. Chinese street fashion. It's just, yeah, I'm like, wow.
What about you, Kylie? Did you have a theme you wanted to talk about?
Sorry, I was listening to everyone. I kind of forgot I existed here for a moment. So, I mean, my book, it has a lot of really dark, heavy themes, but I mean, they're all things that I really wanted to talk about. So it's not that it was difficult to write any theme in particular. I mean, the hardest thing for me, I think I'll always say, is writing romance, just because I'm not a very romantic person. So I actually, like, most things I write pretty intuitively, but for the romance arc in my story, I just had to look up, like, these are the stages of, like, how you write a romance in a book. And, you know, my editor was reading through it, and she's like, this doesn't really feel like a romance. You know, they can't just become friends and then kiss one day. And I was like, they can't? That's not how this works. So that was a little challenging, but I think I'm getting better at it. But it feels very, like, formulaic for me when I go into it. Like, it's not as natural for me to write as other things. So, but honestly, despite all the, like, crazy dark themes in my book, that was probably the hardest.
I feel the same way about romance, and I'm really glad that, like, in middle grade I can just pretend like that doesn't exist. Okay, let's talk about something lighter. What's, like, a fun thing in your book that you were just, like, really excited to write about?
Fight scenes.
Fight scenes?
I enjoy writing fight scenes because my research is just like watching movies and anime. That's how I make it fun for myself. And I really like to write description. And I know, like, some authors don't really like to write description, but I probably over describe, and then in revision and edits have to take it down. But I really, really enjoy, like, doing research about the fashion or the clothing or the hairstyle or the architecture or basically the world, and I'll sit down on just, like, one freaking page of, like, this building that appears once. So I have to, like, edit it out. But, like, to me, it's really fun to, like, try to find interesting ways to describe it and bring it to life for the reader who may or may not be familiar, you know, with the aesthetic. Yeah.
Do you have, like, a tip for writing fight scenes? Like, do you play, like, really intense music? And
not really. I tend to prefer, like, quiet when I write. Either that, or if I'm in a coffee shop in the olden times, it's okay because it's like white noise. It's like, that's fine. Either that or just silence. I don't know if my fight scenes are good, but I think the tip is the advice I think it was Fonda Lee who, you know, 'cause she knows martial arts and she wrote like, her fight scenes are really good. And I don't know if it was her or like her and a combination of other authors, but basically the whole idea is it's not just about the physical movement, it's about the inside, what your character is thinking, how they're feeling, what does this mean. It's not like, you know, smack you, but like the moment it hits and then what are you feeling, what are you worried about, do you feel triumphed, you know, stuff like that. So kind of like imbuing the emotional part of the fight scene into it, instead of just describing action by action. So I think that's the kind of fight scenes that I like to write. Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy like? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I like writing banter, especially when two love hero and heroine are bickering. That's like my favorite bit. Like,
What about food? Did you guys put a lot of food in your novels?
Yeah, I think like all of us probably did or do.
You know what? I had the hardest time describing food though, and somebody had to point it out to me, like, oh, like don't say that your character's mouth's watered, like make our mouths water, you know. And after that, I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I think like in the first chapter, there are already mentions of food, and there were a lot more that I had to cut. I always have to cut things like food, description of clothing, description of buildings. Yeah, but yeah, lots of food.
This is actually a surprisingly difficult question for me because I feel like my novel is so frothy because it is a rom-com. So I feel like so much of it is fun, but I kind of struggled with that a little bit because it actually sort of goes back to my hard question, the question that you asked about what was hard, because I think I gravitate a little bit more to the like the serious questions about representation and things like that. So, but now I have a novel and I love romance. I love rom-coms, but actually writing one was difficult for me, especially because Heiress Apparently is supposed to be, I don't think I'm giving anything away because the title is Heiress Apparently. There's a life of wealth and luxury awaiting her. And Kevin Kwan, who wrote the Crazy Rich Asians series, he lived that life, so he could draw upon his experience, and his difficulty was cutting out the things that were too luxurious, that they would be unbelievable. I did not have that problem. My editor kept coming back and saying, this just seems like a regular hotel room. You're gonna have to up this. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that. So I started Googling luxurious hotel suites to get an idea of what that would even look like. So I was these were supposed to be the fun things I was writing about, and I was having so much trouble because I wasn't thinking big enough. I was still thinking very, very small, apparently. And this was in the middle of the pandemic, so I'm like, do I get a shower to myself? That'd be awesome. If I could, and I'm supposed to be writing these luxurious spas and things. So, yeah.
I was thinking about this and I realized that my book contains almost no food. And I think I made it. Yeah.
It's about reapers, right? And do they?
Yeah,
do they
no,
need to eat?
I made it a rule at some point. Like there's a scene where this guy's like, "Do reapers need to eat?" And Ren's like, "No, we don't." And like that was a completely arbitrary decision. Like I had no reason for doing that. I mean, I think in my mind at the time I was like, I just need to keep things moving. We can't slow down and have dinner here. But like, I'm sure I could have made it work. I made that decision very early on, and then I was like, I guess there's no food in this book now.
That's really interesting because in my current project, which it has like reapers too,
Yeah.
and like Chinese death gods and so on, elves. So I made it a rule that the immortals or the underworld creatures had to eat. so that I could write food. So I went
Just like the
completely
opposite.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, like my urban fantasy, there's a lot of coffee, but not so much. I think there's one meal out, but because it's set in London, it's at a Greek place. Whereas my Shanghai book, there's a lot of food. There's like, yeah, we have like lots of xiaolongbao. She has xiaolongbao like every day because she lives about and he makes them, so she eats them every day. It's great.
Eric, I know your book has a lot of food because it's set in New Orleans, right? Were there like other fun things that you were like really excited to write about?
Well, the food was fun to write about. We had like I put in like New Orleans dishes like the muffalado sandwich, king cake, also like Vietnamese food, pho, of course,
Of course.
and then like longans, like those kind of fruits. But other than like foods, I think what was fun for me to write, because my novel's kind of like on the serious side, is like the lighthearted scenes, especially when one of my characters he kind of falls in love twice in the book, and like writing those scenes when he's just like noticing that he's falling in love. I think those gave me like a break from I guess the trauma of the book, and just like gave my characters some joy. So I think the joy part where my characters are feeling joy are the fun parts to write in my book.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're nearing the end, so I'm gonna ask you guys what you're working on next. And I know some of you have already kind of talked about your next projects, but are there any you can even talk about right now?
Well, in addition to my 11-year-old keeps saying, "Stop calling it a sequel; it's a prequel." So I guess it's a prequel. But it's kind of a sequel because it's actually the series Daughters of Nizi is meant to go backwards in time and hit on all these historical periods. So I'm going to continue calling it a sequel. Is going to be my main character Gemma, her mother's story at that age as a teenager. And another book, I'm breaking into middle grade, so that'll be a new thing. I'm excited about that. Although it's different, definitely. And that's a book for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and I can't actually talk about that one.
Yeah, we all understand.
I'm working on something now. I mean, this is nothing official, so I'm sure I can say this, but it's not very developed yet. I will say that I have a stack of books about ancient China on my desk that I'm using for research for that. I am also Chinese. I'm not just like jumping around Asia here. So that's my next project. That will hopefully be something one day.
That sounds exciting.
So I'm working on a couple of things. I'm trying to finish my contemporary fantasy, which I'm thinking I could pitch it as like a loose reimagining of Hades and Persephone through the lens of Chinese mythology. And I have like a couple of other half-baked, half-developed ideas. One of which is basically kind of, I guess it's like taking the character of Ophelia from Hamlet and reimagining it in a silk punk setting, and basically kind of like mushing it with some short stories from the Tang Dynasty and the Ballad of Mulan. Yeah.
Wow.
June, we need to talk because the Tang Dynasty plays very heavily in the Daughters of Dynasty series.
Okay.
So we'll talk.
Yeah.
So I'm working on my Shanghai novel that will hopefully, I'll be querying that actually. So that should be exciting. And I have another historical Chinese one that I'd really like to write. Sort of set again in the 1830s, so around the Opium Wars, but that needs more research.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm working on another novel, but I'm not telling anyone because, like, I feel like if I say it out loud, I'll jinx it and won't be able to write. So That's where I am.
I'm the exact same way. Like, it has to come out like shining and beautiful into the universe. Otherwise, if it's like in a fetal state and I like even just mention it, it's like the idea just dies. So
Yeah.
I feel you. Okay, we have like 1 minute left. So before we leave, why don't you guys let everyone know how to find you online, like your website and your socials and stuff. So we'll go in order this time. So June, go ahead.
Okay. I am on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, although I don't really do anything on TikTok. I'm just there to watch like Ghost Honey make weird videos. Anyway, my @ is the same. My handle is the same on all the platforms. It's June Scribbles. So June Scribbles, one word, @June Scribbles. And my website is my name, junesialtan.com. Yes, that's not my name.
That is your name.
Yeah.
All right, Diana.
I'm only on Twitter, and I have a website, and my website is dianamaauthor.com. And my Twitter handle is linked from on that website, and it is Diana Dringy Ma.
Right. Eric?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and my handle is @Eric Nguyen is okay.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is the same. It's AY_Chao. So it's AY_CHAO. And my website is aychao.com.
I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram is just Kylie Lee Baker. My website is also KylieLeeBaker.com. Twitter is Kylie Yamashiro, but if you search Kylie Lee Baker, I'm pretty sure I come up anyway. So just my name.
Yay. All right. Thank you everyone for being here. Had such a great time. And I will see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you all around.
Thank you.
Bye.